So, hello everyone. This is my third entry about ITP and living post-splenectomy in response to chronic ITP. So, this is the first time that I'm posting without any makeup on, kind of showing you just how it's affecting me. So my last two videos have been very much on the history of ITP, for me, my experience, splenectomy, what that meant in relation to my overall healthcare plans, what was planned and administered to me by GPs, what consequences I suffered due to so many different antibiotic plans and antibiotics in response to side effects, and living with general low-grade infection all of the time. So I'm getting into my fourth year now, post-splenectomy, and my platelets are still absolutely fantastic. So they're still in the 300s, and they don't tend to drop below that. The only time I've ever had them drop a bit lower was around the time I had sepsis for the second time, and they went back up again once I was starting to heal. So it makes me think that that's definitely to do with my immune system working a bit harder than usual, and obviously it's my immune system that was going at the platelets. So, but when I'm not really recovering from infection like that, and obviously sepsis is an all-over blood response, so that makes sense, then my platelets are super high. They're about 320 at the moment. So in terms of the ITP, the splenectomy was incredibly successful. However, I would say that this is not something to be taken lightly, this decision, because there's only a 60% chance when you opt for splenectomy that your platelets are only being destroyed in your spleen. If they're being destroyed in your liver or your gallbladder as well as, then it's not actually going to completely cure you. It's going to potentially slow it down, and then the other organs could quite easily take on the job of the spleen in killing off your platelets. So, but for anybody, and you can get tests done with specialists where they check where those platelets are being destroyed. So, but if you are in that 60, 70, I think it's between 60 and 70% where it's happening just in the spleen, then I have to admit, right, from all the complications I've had, that it has sorted out my ITP. And ITP left untreated can kill you. So we remain positive on that. However, anyone who's watched the other couple of videos will know that I have had an incredibly hard time trying to manage all of the side effects of having a splenectomy. One of the worst side effects has been tonsillitis. Now, a seemingly minor infection, tonsillitis, but when you don't have the immune system to really clear it from your body, recurrent tonsillitis, which is what I've been having for the past year, I've had it every month for a year now. And of course, because we don't have our spleens, this is why I got sepsis, because my immune response just wasn't strong enough all over. And so I suppose my body goes into overdrive and says, we have to tackle this. And so it goes into sepsis and it starts attacking me rather than just the bacteria. Anyone with ITP knows just how much our immune systems like to really overkill on the killing stuff off. So the issue with tonsillitis, if you haven't got a spleen, you've got or you've got a compromised immune system, is that you are in danger of sepsis. And I had sepsis only 6 months ago from tonsillitis, secondary to tonsillitis. So I've spent a year on antibiotics, going from my prophylactic dose to upping to 8 a day to get rid of the tonsillitis, to going 2 weeks where I'm well and then it comes back and then I have to do it again. So anyone who's watched the other 2 videos will remember that I had specifically gone against my GPs, brought myself completely off all of my antibiotics and was managing infection and inflammation in the body through diet and natural pre and probiotics. And don't get me wrong, the folliculitis I was suffering has gone. My joints are much better. I don't have water infections anymore, so generally my health, and I've got much more energy, generally my health was significantly better. However, the tonsillitis started whilst I was still taking all of those antibiotics a year ago. It didn't matter whether I was on penicillin, and it didn't matter whether I was off penicillin, it was there anyway. And it's got progressively worse each time it comes back. And antibiotics have worked less each time it comes back. So unfortunately the bacteria was already in my throat. So I would say don't ignore my advice from the last videos, because it has significantly improved a lot of my low-grade infections in my body. But tonsillitis, I'm figuring out, is not something that I can manage through a change in diet or through the introducing of high nutrient kind of raw food, prebiotic, probiotic diet. It's not manageable through that. It doesn't really respond to antibiotics. So I am having a tonsillectomy tomorrow. It's something I've put off for a long time because of the research I've done about having more lymphatic tissue removed when you already don't have a spleen, as this is supposed to be your first line of defence for bacteria that goes onto your chest and into your stomach, and then blood related or more severe infection tends to be managed by your spleen. So yes, there are much higher risks of chest infections, and I guess stomach related issues, because bacteria drops onto your chest and into your stomach without a filter. However, quality of life for me has been a struggle the past year, and so I'm going to give it a go. For anyone who's gone through ITP and splenectomy, obviously opting to have more tissue removed is a stressful and traumatic thing, but chronic illness, I think you're always weighing up what your best options are long term, and I think quality of life and living without the danger of sepsis from tonsillitis, from quinsy throats, from abscesses is quite important. And anybody who is experiencing ITP and has done steroid treatment and has done splenectomies and antibiotic treatments knows that these antibiotic and these steroid treatments, the amount of damage they do and the amount of side effects long term, potentially more damaging and more likely to cause unusual cell growths and cancers than having tissue removed and then working with the body to really feed it what it wants to build and strengthen. So I think the chances of having quality of life and everyday health are much higher with this option than keeping tissue that is obviously stressed and not really doing what it's supposed to do anymore, and continually having antibiotic therapy on high dosages. So I'm making this video to show you the starting point of a very tired, a very stressed, and kind of apathetic Hannah, and then I'm going to do another one maybe in a month to describe the experience, whether or not I think it was a good idea, although I am aware that guinea pigging myself on YouTube isn't a great option. I'd choose another option if I had one, but better I think to share it with you than not. I've had a few comments of people who are going through the same thing, that it was so lovely to just have validation and acknowledgement that this process is really hard and it exists and it deserves time and energy and research, because it's very rare, everything is secondary, and so when it's not primary conditions, doctors don't really take them into consideration as the whole of the body in a way that they do with one focused primary condition. But we know that all of this is interconnected, and so all of the decisions we make around our lifestyles are incredibly important for everything else to function. So this is where I'm at. Wish me luck. I've read a lot of different responses on the ITP groups of whether or not this is a good idea. The majority, it was difficult because obviously a lot of people have opinions and not everybody has picked this option. So from the people who have had both splenectomies and tonsillectomies in response to ITP, whether it was having a tonsillectomy as a child and then getting ITP and having to have the splenectomy, or whether they had the ITP, had the splenectomy, and then as a consequence of the splenectomy were suffering so much with tonsillitis that they had to have the tonsillectomy. Out of these groups of people, 80% said it was the best decision they made because it was about quality of life. And encouragingly, everyone that I spoke to had it done, 10 to 20 years ago. So they, the comments were, I get colds quite a bit, but I haven't had tonsillitis since. My ITP's okay, and my quality of life is alright. I'm getting on with it. I'm managing it. Whereas at the moment, I'd say I'm trying to survive it rather than managing it. So that's really encouraging. So I will be back in a month, also giving you tips on how I've powered through having a bit of my throat ripped out, what that was like, and the things that I found helpful. Because there doesn't seem to be many self-help videos about for tonsillectomies, let alone tonsillectomies in response to splenectomies, low-grade infections and ITP. So yeah, I'll see you in a month. I'll see you on the other side, and hopefully I will look and feel less like death. Not funny, I suppose. And I'll talk you through it all. The anaesthetic, whether or not I had to take more antibiotics. I've stocked up on turmeric root and ginger root and lemons and apple cider vinegar, and I've got all my pre and probiotics to sort myself out through this process. So let's see if it works. And I'll be back in a month to tell you how the guinea pig test went. For anyone suffering, having similar experiences, you're more than welcome to get in touch. It was so unbelievably encouraging, although I would never wish this on anybody, to hear from people who are experiencing this, because it's such a small group. So, see you soon. Bye.